too sure why the stream ended abruptly there, but we are back. We didn't miss out on much, only turn 1, thankfully. We can see BR4 has now decided to come into the pits, and that promotes Ella up into P4 and Stell into P5. And as BR4 comes out, we can see the Mercedes drivers have made that swap around that we were talking about earlier. So Stell now manages to go up into P4, Ella into P5. Trocker managing to set the fastest lap time of this race with a 109.9. And Bambino still very close behind Paul House. We can see BR4 is actually managing to close the gap to Ella very, very quickly. We have another driver that enters the pit, and it's finally Jacko on his 20-lap-old hards has finally decided to call it enough. And we can see the McLaren team is now all ready for him to make his pit stop. Going back to the action at hand, BR4 roughly 3/10 behind Ella. We saw BR4 coming into a battle of his own with the Mercedes drivers not too long ago, as he comes once again very close together with them. Looking up the grid, Bambino once again very close behind Mitchell. But that's all it's been for most of this race, as drivers have just been extremely close to each other, but they're just waiting for that one little tiny window of opportunity to close the gap and make a possible overtake. And speaking of overtakes, BR4 choosing to dive down the inside there, a very risky move there, but unfortunately does not pay off well for him, as Ella manages to retain P4. It was a risky move there. But that won't stop BR4 from trying once again. As they head down the start-finish straight, DRS wide open. The Mercedes in front of him unfortunately does not have any DRS. He dives down the inside trying to make a move into turn 1. They're going side by side with each other. There's a bit of wheel banging between the Mercedes and the Red Bull drivers. And unfortunately that costed BR4 just a little bit, as he heads down into the second DRS zone, tries to tuck in right behind the Mercedes for a possible slipstream once again. Will he dive down the inside? We will have to see as they come into the next corner, and it doesn't seem like he's going to be able to dive down the inside. Unfortunately not. So that little bit of contact that the Mercedes and the Red Bull had costed BR4 dearly, as Steva picks up the first 3-second time penalty of this race. You know, BR4 is unfortunately going to be frustrated with Ella for ruining a possible overtaking opportunity. But given the current scenario, he can't afford to slip up any more than he has. Looking up the grid, we can see Bambino's actually very close behind Mitchell on this occasion. So we've seen this move building for quite a few laps now, but unfortunately nothing coming out of it. DRS wide open. He's a lot closer to Paul House on this occasion, but once again Paul House managing to just stretch it out and not get overtaken there. Fantastic driving from him. Meanwhile, BR4 once again round 2 trying to dive down the inside of the Mercedes once more into turn 1. The Mercedes going the long way around the outside, and this time BR4 manages to make the move stick and manages to promote himself up into P4. Not allowing the same mistake to happen twice, as he manages to get past one of the Mercedes drivers and sets his eyes on the next Mercedes driver in front of him, currently in P3. Looking down the grid, Trocker currently 5/10 behind Jacko. And with DRS wide open, will he be able to defend this position? It seems like he's a bit too far back on this occasion, which he is. So nothing doing yet. We are on lap 24 of 36, and if you are just joining us, we've had an interesting race so far. We can see Bambino and Mitchell going wheel to wheel with each other essentially on each and every lap, but Mitchell managing to hold out his positions and managing to keep the lead of this race. We can see BR4 being sandwiched by both the Mercedes drivers. So everybody in a battle of their own. Once again, Bambino a bit too far back on this occasion. Paul House managing to just get every bit of speed out of that car. And luckily for him, he's not losing out on anything. Oh, once again, Paul House manages to retain the position. Looking down the grid, Trocker very close behind Jacko on this occasion. Heading down into turn 1, Trocker dives down the inside, but he can't get the move to stick. As Jacko around the outside manages to retain the position, Trocker thought about making the switchback, but unfortunately for him, Jacko covers it off. But with DRS in the next corner, how will this prevail for Trocker as he has his DRS wide open and manages to make the move stick before the corner even ends, and manages to promote himself up into P10. This is not a good look for both the McLaren drivers as they're sitting in P11 and P12, just barely missing out on the points. We can see Trocker's teammate Pyro kind of sitting in a race of his own with an 8-second gap to the car in front of him. But he does have Ishtar in the Ferrari right behind him. Dead game? Yeah, no, I was hoping for more, especially for the first race of the season, but we make do with what we have, right? I think it would have been really bad if we had to merge with somebody in the first race of the season. That would have been bad. Steba now 3/10 behind Jaguar. Obviously has that 3-second time penalty to deal with, but unfortunately, despite having the DRS on the car in front of him, unfortunately can't make a move. So he'll have to stay in P7, but heading into this right-hander, if he's close enough, he may just make a move heading into the next braking zone. And will he do so? No, he will not. Opts to stay behind him on this occasion. Meanwhile, BR4 has actually managed to close the gap to Stell considerably, roughly 4/10 separating P3 and P4. This is obviously for the final podium position. We've got a lot of overtakes building up over here, as we can see Steba now very close behind Jaguar as they're heading down the start-finish straight. DRS wide open for Steba as he looks towards making an overtake on Jaguar. Where will he go? Decides to go the long way around the outside as Jaguar covers the inside line. Steba around the outside manages to make the move stick, and unfortunately Jaguar is going to have to concede the position. But heading into this next corner with DRS, will Jaguar be able to bite right back? We will have to see, and it seems like he will. Jaguar going into the inside into the next corner, and Steba once again around the outside manages to defend the position very, very nicely and manages to retain P6. Looking up the grid, BR4 now, 2/10 separating him and Stell. Once again, this is for the final podium position. We can see P1 and P2 obviously have been close to each other throughout this entire race. I doubt the gap has gone more than maybe 6/10 throughout these entire 27 laps. Once again, it doesn't seem to be any different here as Paul House manages to have a bit of a gap to Bambino. But meanwhile, BR4 with DRS wide open has to go around the outside as Stella manages to cover off the inside line. And BR4 opting to trying to go for the switch around, but he can't do anything just as yet. DRS into the next straight. Will he be able to make the overtake on Stell? We will have to see. Stell once again trying to defend the inside line, but goes back to the racing line. And BR4 has unfortunately no other choice but to stay in P4. Ishtar, we can see, has picked up a 3-second time penalty now as well. I would love to just actually, never mind. I was just gonna say, like, I thought it would be fun to go back to Bambino and Paul House just to keep seeing if there's any potential overtakes building up. Actually, never mind. Okay, never mind. Once again, they're so close to each other. You think an overtake is due any second now. Bambino has been pushing Mitchell throughout this entire race, and Mitchell has been holding on to P1 throughout this entire race. But once again, despite such a narrow gap to P1 and P2, it doesn't seem like it's going to be enough. Bambino thought about diving down the outside, but once again, Mitchell has it covered off. We can see BR4 going side by side with the Mercedes now, going around the outside, now the inside line and heading into the next corner. But unfortunately, not enough room to maybe gain enough speed there as he has to concede the position and allow Stell to go right through. Once again, Bambino 2/10 separating Paul House at the end of that straight, but no move done just as yet. And BR4, despite trying to make a move on the Mercedes driver, has unfortunately no chance to catch up to him at the end of the second straight. Looking down the grid, we can see Ishtar being sandwiched between the AlphaTauris right now. Ishtar actually looking to get unsandwiched by that, going side by side with Pyro as he's diving down the inside. Will Ishtar be able to make this move stick? Pyro trying to go around the outside. Can he make the move stick? He still hasn't lost Pyro just as yet. We can see now Trocker getting very involved here, and Trocker gets let through by Pyro. And Pyro is unfortunately in the span of 2 corners dropped down 2 positions, and we can see now Jacko Lacko getting very interested on making a potential move on the AlphaTauri in front of him. So in the span of a few corners, we can see unfortunately Pyro has dropped down, maybe allowing Trocker to go through to catch up to Ishtar instead. And now Pyro has his own headaches to deal with Jacko right behind him. We can see Jacko is and Pyro's unfortunately lost his car. Unfortunately for Pyro, he has completely lost his car and drives into the grass there, and that promotes Jacko into P10. Luckily for Pyro, there was no DNF there, but BR4 once again separated by roughly a tenth, tries to go down the inside, but still, once again, covers off the racing line and does not allow BR4 to make any sort of moves. Meanwhile, Trocker, 2 tenths separating Trocker and Ishtar. DRS wide open. Will Trocker make any moves? No, he will not. Too far back on this occasion. Once again, the straight's just not big enough for these drivers. So a move that's been building for quite a few laps now. BR4 once again a tenth behind Stell as they head down towards turn 1. We've seen how this matchup played out before. Once again, Stell covering off the inside line. BR4 trying to go around the outside of the Mercedes. Can't do anything yet, but tucking right back into his slipstream. Trying to gain some speed on him, heading into the next DRS zone. We can see the flashing light of BR4 will definitely not assist him, but with DRS wide open, he's still too far back on this occasion to make any sort of moves on Stell. So once again, BR4 is going to have to stay in P4. We can see Trocker now finally getting that overtake done on Ishtar and managing to promote himself up into P8. This move has been building for quite a while, but Ishtar not done just as yet with DRS wide open, looking to fight this position right back, trying to go around the outside of Trocker and actually managing to. Never mind, Trocker not done with this move just as yet. Both the Ferrari and the AlphaTauri going side by side, heading into the next corner. They're still side by side, and Ishtar actually managing to make the move stick, obviously opting to not brake while Ishtar Trocker actually opting to. There's a bit of contact between the drivers, and Trocker has lost his car. Oh no, there was some great racing between the AlphaTauri and the Ferrari there, but Trocker, unfortunately, after that collision, has lost his car and has unfortunately spun around and has dropped down into P10. That promotes Jacko into P9 and allows Ishtar to retain P8. Very unfortunate for him, as once again, BR4 getting very close behind the Mercedes. We've seen Bambino actually beginning to slowly drop off from Mitchell. These straights are just not long enough for some of these drivers as they're struggling to gain those last few meters on the cars in front of them. But as we've seen, the DRS zone is not the only place you can make a potential overtake on the cars in front of you. Lap 32 of 36, 4 laps to go. As time winds down, there's only so much some of these drivers can do, so it's either now or never for most of them. As we ride on board with BR4 once again, 4 tenths now. He's unfortunately a bit further back from Stell than last lap. BR4 obviously does have the fresher compounded tires, 2 lap fresher, as a matter of fact. Nothing doing yet. Once again, we can see Steba now, the Mercedes behind BR4, Ella, having a few problems of his own as he's going to have to defend from the Alpine of Steba. Heading into the next corner, one Mercedes is able to defend their positions. Heading into this, and in the same corner, the second Mercedes also be able to hold out and managing to retain their positions. I don't think I've ever seen... Oh, Bambino getting a bit squirrely through that exit, and that may just have been the mistake Mitchell had been waiting for. As now Mitchell will definitely be trying to push and will try to gain some massive amount of time on Bambino. Unfortunately for Bambino there, it seems like he went on the power a bit too quickly there and unfortunately lost his rear end. And we can see that he's managing to drop out of the DRS zone, and now is roughly 1.2 seconds behind Mitchell. And we can see Steba now going side by side with Ella, managing to make the overtake there, promoting himself up into P5, but Ella not done with him just yet. Once again, DRS wide open as he's gaining on Ella. Ella goes around the outside, but Ella goes around the Steba goes around the outside, and Ella unfortunately thought about diving down the inside, but comes into contact with Steba there and unfortunately loses his car. And unfortunately, because of losing his car, loses out of position to Jaguar as well. There was plenty of room there for both cars to go side by side, but Steba unfortunately dived inwards and costed Ella a position. And we can see Ella is actually now going side by side with Jaguar once again, trying to gain that position that he lost out on. But you know he's going to be frustrated with that move. We may be looking at a report in the steward's office for that, and we can see Bambino now once again actually closing the gap down massively, and now BR4 managing to make the overtake on Stell, who's unfortunately spun out as well. So in the same lap, we've seen two Mercedes drivers spin out. How unfortunate for the Mercedes teams, as both Stell and Ella unfortunately lose out on positions because of that, and BR4 now sitting in P3 promotes himself up a position. Steba, who manages to promote himself up into P4. And both the Mercedes drivers sitting now currently in P5 and P6. It doesn't look like Ella's nightmares are done just as yet. Jaguar's right behind him on 18 lap old hards. No DRS for Ella on this occasion, but Jaguar with DRS wide open, looking towards maybe diving down the inside, but a bit too far back on this occasion. Meanwhile, we've seen Pyro getting let through by Trocker by the looks of it. You do have Jacko Lacko to deal with right behind them. Will Trocker be able to defend this position from the McLaren behind him? We'll have to see. Yes, he will. Breaks later and manages to retain his position. Bambino, on the other hand, despite dropping down 1.2 seconds, has closed that gap right up, back up to 5/10. And as we begin the final lap of this race, it's now or never for all of these drivers. We'll ride on board with Paul House and Bambino and see if there's any sort of mistakes between these drivers. It doesn't look like there has been throughout this entire race, as they've been consistent with each other. We do have another yellow flag, and that seems to be Ishtar, who spun out on this occasion now. But going back to the action at hand, oh, what's going on here? Oh, actually, Ella and Jaguar are now coming into a race of their own. They're banging wheels with each other, but Jaguar manages to make the move on Ella, heading into the next DRS zone. Ella with DRS wide open, maybe looking to bounce right back at Jaguar, but can't do anything just as yet. Thought about going around the outside, but can't do that now. We can see as Pyro unfortunately picks up a 5-second penalty for ignoring yellow flags. And coming into Sector 3 now, Paulhouse and Bambino have basically been at each other's throats for the entirety of this race. 36 laps, we've seen these two drivers building a move on each other, and Bambino in the final moments of this race maybe thought about making a push, but unfortunately it won't be enough. Paulhouse comes across the line and wins the Brazilian Grand Prix. Bambino finishes in P2 despite, after a fantastic race from him. BR4, after Stell and Ella's mistakes, manages to promote himself up into P3. Stell sitting in P4, Steba in P5. Jaguar manages to retain P6. Doesn't look like he's going to be close enough to maybe get promoted up a position. And Ella in P7. Pyro, with his penalty, looks like he'll most likely be dropping down a position or two as he comes across the line and finishes in P8 and actually allows Trocker to go through. Just because there's really no point. And Pyro drops down into P10. Ishtar gets promoted up into P9. And what a fantastic first race of the season we have had. Unbelievable stuff here. It was actually insane how much Mitchell and Bambino were at each other's throats, but regardless, you can't take away from what was a fantastic race from these drivers. A big congratulations to Paul House for winning the first race of the season as he hits the griddy Why have they added this? But a big congratulations to Paul House, setting off his season 12 completely correctly, and has managed to kick it off with a fire start. Right, well, I have invited some of the drivers in, so we should be getting interviews done. All right. Right, well,
Hello.
hello. It's so nice to finally get a word with you. A big congratulations on winning the first race of the season, man. You had Bambino on your throat throughout the entire race.
Yeah, fucking hell. Thank you. Oh, I know what the front of a Williams looks like now. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I can imagine. So talk me through it, man. Any
Ah,
moments, any scary moments for you? You obviously had that moment where after your pits you came out behind Bambino.
mhm.
So what was the mentality going into that? You obviously suffered because of cold
Well,
tires.
um, I was tempted to stay out even longer, but on my uh, on my in lap, the tires were just magically gone. It's like Bambino knew or something. I don't know.
Hmm.
So yeah, he got in front with a nice move, nice dive bomb, left him space, was good battle. But I already knew he was slow in a straight line, so I was like, if I can just stay within a second, because he was a god in the middle sector. If I can just stay within a second, I'll be fine. And well, yeah,
Yeah, no, I was about to say it
yeah,
must have been getting really frustrating for you because I kept noticing that every single lap at the end of sector three, he'd at the end of sector two, he'd be like three and a
yeah,
half tenths behind you, and then you just
yeah.
gain on him on the
Especially on
straight.
the hards, the mediums,
Yeah.
the mediums were kind of fine, and the hards were awful. I had no grip whatsoever. On the mediums, the long left hander was for me flat. If
Hmm.
I just short shifted, not on the hards. So
Right.
that's why he gained all the time again.
Makes sense. Yeah, but you can't take away from what was overall a fantastic race from you, man. A big
I
congratulations. Started off your
thank you,
season
thank
right,
you.
right?
Yeah, for once. I normally don't win the first race. I usually get into it, but yeah, no, this was nice.
Well, hopefully
It was
better
also a
things
good
to come for
battle.
you, man. I wish you nothing but the best for the rest of the season. Hopefully
Thank
you
you,
continue to
thank you,
perform at an exceptional level. Looking forward to your
thank you.
three-peat, man.
That's the aim, that's the aim. But not gonna lie, as long as I win Singapore, because I've had so much bad luck around Singapore, so I just
Ah.
hope I just finally win that one.
Well, be sure to circle that one on the calendar and be sure to keep an eye
It's
out
next
on
week.
you.
It's
Oh,
in a
okay. Well,
week.
perfect. I'll just be sure to keep an eye out on you then for that entire race.
Yeah,
But no, big congratulations once again, man.
thank you,
Hopefully
thank you.
you'll continue to perform well. But it doesn't seem like anybody else is going to be joining for interviews now, so I guess that's going to be
No,
all
I
for
can already
today.
tell you, BF4 never does it, and Big Bambino
Yeah, he just
sometimes.
said he couldn't, so
Yeah,
well,
yeah, BF4 never does it. So,
that's unfortunate. Well, oh
well,
well, like, huh?
for next time, usually stay with Stell, Logan, Trucker, pyro. They usually do it. So.
I mean, I'll just ask anyways. I mean, if they don't respond or anything, I'll just take it as a no anyway, so it doesn't really make a big difference.
Fair enough.
But right, thank you so much for your time. I'll let you go relax now and go enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
All right. And I think that's going to be all for Tier 1 as well. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Hopefully you all enjoyed yourself as much as I did. And I will see you all next week at Singapore.